Today we're going to begin a new series on organs. And usually I think at this age or at your age range, I should say, you guys know of the different organs. Like if I tell you what a liver is, you guys will know in general what
Yes.
a liver looks like, but you guys don't necessarily understand like the actual functions of the liver. If I tell you about the pancreas and I ask you about the islets of Langerhans, that is likely a bit complicated or a little bit more advanced than what you might know. And so today we're going to start talking about some more advanced stuff about organs. Obviously, you know that the heart carries blood to the body, but you might not know about the structure of the heart. You might not know what the superior vena cava is. You might not know what the tricuspid valve is. And so we're going to talk about some really advanced topics in the coming couple of weeks that usually you won't learn until maybe your first or second year of high school. So you guys are very much ahead of your time here. I didn't learn most of this content until when I was well into the first year of high school. So you guys are in for a treat here. As always, you guys can feel free to jump in anytime with any questions. You guys, the chat box is always open. And you guys are also free to use the reactions or just let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Um, let's begin. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Lawrence, but I saw a lot of familiar names coming in, so you guys all know that. Okay. I found this really cool GIF or GIF online, by the way. It's pretty cool. But just as the basic, let's just go over some of the like the very basic function of the heart before we get into some of the more advanced stuff here. Okay, so first thing that you should know is that the heart doesn't actually beat the way you think it does. It actually twists when it beats. So instead of thinking about it, if you guys can see my hand, you guys might think that the heart just beats like this, but it actually twists and beats like this. If you can see my hand. Can everyone see my hand? Like it twists and it beats. Everyone can see my hand, right? Yeah, like Colby is doing. Think about like if you take a towel and you twist the towel to get the water out, that's kind of what the heart does. It's twisting to pump blood. It's not just beating like this, it's actually twisting. And that allows it to pump more blood out. It's actually more efficient. Which is cool to think about. You can kind of see it in this image here, as it kind of does the beating thing in the GIF. Oh my, Colby, that is really high exposure. That filter is crazy. But if you guys look in this little GIF here, you can kind of see that the heart is making this like sort
I
of
don't,
like a twisting
I
motion.
don't know why it's doing that, but I think that's happening because my computer isn't that good. Like,
Oh,
it was, yeah,
no.
something with the computer. So, like, sometimes it might be weird.
Okay, all good. No worries. Don't worry about it, Colby. Right, but let's talk about some of the stuff that the heart actually does and move away from the twisting motion. Oh, it looks like Colby sent something in the chat here. Okay, it's just the heart spinning around. Okay, cute. Um, so one of the main things that the heart does is it pumps oxygenated blood to the body, right? This means that it pumps blood that has oxygen in it. The red blood cells, they carry oxygen to the body, and the heart's job is to deliver that oxygen to the body, to the brain, to the legs, to the muscles, to your arms, right? Your muscles can't function without oxygen. The other thing that the blood does is it also takes in oxygen, poor blood. So after the blood has gone to your muscles, the muscles take the oxygen out of the blood and it returns to the heart. And the heart, what it does is it pumps that blood back to the lungs. And we will talk about this in the future, but what the lung does is it basically transfers oxygen from what you breathe into your blood. So your lungs and your heart actually work together really well. But to talk about the lungs and the heart at the same time is a lot, and it can be confusing. So so what we can do is so what we see is basically the heart takes in oxygen, poor blood, it pumps it to the lungs, and then it gets that blood back to pump to the body. And so we see this kind of cycle where this blood that's been used by the body comes to the heart, and then it is kind of oxygenated again by the lungs, and then it goes back to the body. And we will talk about this system when we talk about the lungs, and it's called the pulmonary system. It's actually very cool. Okay, kind of. When you say it turns oxygen into blood, it basically takes the oxygen and puts it into blood. It doesn't make the oxygen blood. It just takes the oxygen that you breathe in and it transfers it into the blood. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that when we talk about the lungs, because that's the job of the lungs, to get the oxygen into the blood. Why does the heart turn then? Oh my goodness, Jeff, relax. Okay. What do you mean, why does the heart turn? Why does it twist when it pumps? Is that what you're asking, Colby? Yes. It twists when it pumps because it can squeeze more out. It is stronger that way. That is the way the heart muscles are aligned, so that it just naturally twists like that. It's more efficient for the body. It just pumps more out at once.
Is it possible that the heart just doesn't like twist?
Is it possible for the heart to not twist?
Yeah, that was the question I was asking.
I mean, okay, so I assume you're asking if what happens if the heart just beats like this, as opposed to what happens if the heart doesn't twist. Because if it doesn't like twist or beat, then you're dead because your heart's not functioning. But what happens if it just beats like this? Is that what you're asking, John?
Yeah, like if it just doesn't twist but it's still beeping.
Yeah, so it's just less efficient. You don't get as much blood pumped out of the heart, and so you won't get as much oxygen to your muscles.
Wait, is that how you get asthma?
No, asthma is a little different. Asthma is an issue with the lungs.
How you get a heart attack?
A heart attack is, of course, related to the heart, but it is a little different. There are many causes for a heart attack. We will talk about heart attack and certain heart issues later on in the PowerPoint. Jeff, please stop spamming the chat. Thank you. John, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
It's a different me. I'm not spamming the chat.
Okay, wait.
你跟音乐老师已经在还水了，你还这
Okay,
样子吗？
whoever is spamming the chat, please
Bro, it's probably the other me where it like glitched out.
really?
And I came back in.
Okay.
Why
Oh
am
my.
I literally my
Yeah,
my
I
videos
saw
is
your cameras like flashing. It's okay, no worries. As I said, one of the jobs of the heart is to circulate blood around the body. But it also maintains blood pressure. Blood pressure is basically how strong your blood flows through your veins and your arteries. If you have really low blood pressure, you can get really dizzy, you can feel nauseous standing up. It's not good. And low blood pressure and high blood pressure can always result to major heart problems. Oh my, Colby, your camera is really
and
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, but one of the
My
things that
speaker is not that good.
oh man,
My
did you
speaker isn't that good. So
okay. Your microphone sounds good though, so no worries there. But
嘿，别说我，
but
别说我。
one of the things that you guys might not know is that the heart is actually electrically controlled. There's a little node that sits on top of the heart. It's called the pacemaker, and it basically shocks your heart. It sends electrical impulses into the muscles of your heart to get them to beat.
Where does the electric come from?
The electricity,
Yes.
it comes from the body. The body naturally has electricity, which might be surprising, but the human body naturally has electricity. Our body uses electricity to control our heart, and a lot of other functions. Think about us as like kind of like a really low level electric eel. All life forms have like a certain amount of electrical activity inside of them, John, if you didn't know. Yeah. Pretty cool, right, John? I think it's pretty cool. Okay. Let's talk about structure. So this is where things can get a little bit complicated. Okay, so let me explain the diagram first. So everything that you see here in blue, what the blue color means is that it carries blood that is deoxygenated. It means that there's no oxygen in the blood. Which also means that that blood is coming from the body. The body has used up the oxygen in that blood. And so everywhere on this heart diagram that is blue, it means that deoxygenated blood passes through there. Everywhere that is red, in contrast, means that blood that has been oxygenated passes through there. So this is everything in red here means that it is about to go to the body. It is about to go power muscles or power the brain or power any other like body function. Everything here in blue means that the blood in here has been used up by the body. The oxygen has been taken out of the blood. There are 7 things in the chat. Okay. Okay, whoever is the period, if you could stop spamming, that'd be great. Okay, perfect. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's Lyndon. Lyndon, stop doing that. Okay.
I'm not spamming someone else's.
Okay. Regardless of who is blowing up the chat function, it'd be great if we could not abuse the chat privileges. Okay. Still on very basic structure. The heart has 4 chambers, and this means it has 4 openings of sorts. It has 4 kind of like does everyone know what a chamber is?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, the heart has 4 chambers. I don't need to explain anymore. Perfect. Okay. Does anyone know what the names of the chambers are without reading the slide?
There's 4. There's
Yes,
2
there
left,
are
2 right.
Yes.
I think it's the atrium and ventricle, and then there's 2 on. There's one on the left, one on the right, and then for the ventricles, there's one on the and the same thing, one on the left, one on the right.
Right. No, Lena, you're exactly correct. The heart has 4 chambers and it has 2 atria and 2 ventricles. So the heart is kind of split into this this kind of left right or okay, so it's inverted because
Wait, I have a question.
yes,
I
yes,
have
what's
a
up?
question.
Yeah, yes, Daniel.
Like the right ventricle,
Mhm.
how does that blood go to the lungs?
Okay, so
It travels, and then
yes,
it goes to
okay.
alveoli.
Okay,
And then blood
Daniel,
transfer
I will explain that in a second. That is a great question. I will remember your question on how the blood in the right ventricle goes to the lungs, okay? Is that all right, Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I promise I'll answer your question in a second. Okay, but let's talk about the difference between an atrium and a ventricle. Okay. Also, the plural for atrium, when I say that there is more than one atrium, I say that there are multiple atria. Here, I'll write it out for you. The plural of atrium is atria, if you didn't know. And the plural of ventricle is just ventricles. So yeah. So when I say atria, just know that I'm referring to multiple atrium. Okay, but there's a right atrium, there's a left atrium, and then there's a right ventricle and there's a left ventricle. So the difference between atria and ventricle is that atria will always receive blood. They will always be receiving blood from the body or receiving blood from the lungs. They are the chamber that receives blood. That is what the atrium does. The atrium will always pump blood to the ventricle. Atrium always goes to ventricle, and that never changes. The ventricle is the chamber that pumps blood to the lungs or to the body. So the ventricle is what pumps the blood out of the heart, and the atria are the chambers that receive blood. And that will always be true. So atrium is what takes it in, ventricle is what puts it out. Any questions, anybody? That is very important to understand. Okay, perfect. Great. So let's follow the flow of blood through the heart. And let me get out my trusty little pen here. Okay, perfect. Everyone can see that, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, oh boy, easy on the annotations. Thank you for clearing those, guys. If you guys are going to make annotations, be sure to clear them after. Okay, so there are two main ways in which blood gets to the heart. Actually, these are the only two ways in which deoxygenated blood gets to the heart. The first one is called the superior vena cava, okay? And this brings deoxygenated blood, so it brings blue blood from the top of your body. So it brings it from the brain, from your arms, that kind of stuff. The inferior vena cava comes from the lower half of your body, your legs, your organs, your digestive system. And so I accidentally opened the chat and now I can't figure out how to close it.
Is that a class?
Okay, perfect. As I was saying, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, these are the main methods in which blood or deoxygenated blood gets to the heart. Let me get my pen tool again here. Okay, so, where'd my pen tool go? All right, perfect. Okay, for some reason, my pen isn't working. Oh, man. Okay, never mind. It is working. Perfect. I'm going to clear all the annotations. And so, as we said before, all the blood is going to come into the atrium, right? We'll remember that the atrium is where blood enters the heart. That it's the chamber that holds the all the blood that comes in, okay? And remember how I said the atrium always pumps blood to a ventricle? And as Colby highlighted here for us, we'll be able to see that all the blood in here comes into the right ventricle. And so this is still deoxygenated blood. The blood in here is still blue and it still doesn't have oxygen in it because it's been used up by the body. What the right ventricle will do is that the right ventricle, and Daniel, this is your question, the right ventricle will pump the blood up through these pulmonary arteries, and it will pump the blood out to something, a little organ that we like to call the lungs. And this is a terrible depiction of the lung. I'm so sorry. But we all know that we have
the
two
other
lungs.
side of the lung.
Yep.
That's the opposite.
Sorry, what?
You were drawing the opposite lungs.
I was drawing the opposite lungs. What do you mean by that?
That lung on the right is supposed to be the left lung.
Oh,
So-
you're talking about the shape, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, you're right. If I was concerned about the shape, I would redraw the lungs to what Colby has drawn in green. So these are a pretty accurate depiction of the lungs. And so what happens is this blue blood, this blood that has no oxygen in it, will come through to the lungs and it will, like pool up. And so the blue represents the blood that doesn't have oxygen in it, and it will come into each of these lungs. And inside the lungs, the blood will become oxygenated. The lungs basically diffuse oxygen into the bloodstream. And so we'll see that the blood actually gets oxygen. And I'll represent this with red blood as oxygenated blood. And so what happens is, you guys can see the colors, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Daniel. What this red blood will do, this oxygenated blood, is it will come back into the heart. It will flow from the lungs back into the heart, in through what we call the pulmonary veins. Okay, and does anyone want to tell me where they think the blood might be received? What chamber receives blood, if you guys remember?
I'm not sure. Is it the left atrium? I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're exactly correct. let's see if I can get my draw tool out again. Right. So all the oxygenated blood ends up here in the left atrium. Remember that atrium receives blood and ventricles pump blood out to the body or to the lungs. And so all of this blood that has accumulated, or I shouldn't say accumulated, but has been oxygenated inside of the lungs comes back into the heart. And it accumulates in this this left atrium, where it is then pumped to the left ventricle. And once it gets to the left ventricle takes this new like oxygenated blood, the blood that can be used by the body, and it pumps it out to the body. It pumps it through this valve up to the aorta, and it goes out to the body, if you can follow my arrows here. And it will eventually, you know, like come down to the legs, if the legs need oxygen, and this is going off to the brain. Okay. So you can see the heart is actually a very complicated process. It is evolved over millions of years. It is very efficient, and it is a great organ, awesome organ. Yes, Colby, what's up?
What is a white boomerang shaped thingamabobbers?
Ah, great question. I was just about to talk about this, but you beat me to it. What Colby is referring to are these little white curves along the chambers of the heart. So what you will notice is that, yes, thank you, John. What you'll notice is that these white curves, they separate the atrium from the ventricle, and from the ventricle to this like kind of artery that leads to the lungs. And again, we see this kind of separation between the atrium and the ventricle. So these are what we call valves. They basically prevent blood from trickling through the heart. They only let blood in to the ventricle or to these arteries when the time is right. So basically they stop any kind of like backflow in the heart, and they make sure all the blood is pumped together at one time, instead of blood just kind of like trickling through the heart. It is pumped through. And these are everyone knows what a valve is in general. It basically just like it's like a sink faucet. It stops like
I just imagine something, and when you actually think of it, it's a bit gross how your
Mhm.
heart just. It's a bit gross how your heart goes like it might be gross when you see it inside.
Yes, open heart surgery can be difficult to watch, but open heart surgery is also an amazing process that has been refined over many
Dangerous
decades.
risks.
Yes,
Well,
and it saves many
just-
lives. Yes, Colby.
Just saying, to me, everything inside the body will probably feel gross to me because I don't like anything about inside body parts.
Yeah, some people just don't do well with blood, and that's completely fine. I mean, and some people also get over their dislike of blood later on in their life. So I don't know, Colby, maybe you'll grow up one day and be a surgeon. We'll see. Okay, but basically the valves allow blood to flow through, and they prevent backflow. So
What?
so instead of like, basically they prevent blood from moving in this direction. We don't want blood to move like this. That is bad. We don't want blood going in this direction. We only want blood going in this direction. Okay. Any questions, anybody?
How do heart attacks, how are heart attacks caused then?
I will get to that in just a second. Don't worry, that's the next slide. Okay. Yes, that is a great question, Colby. Heart attacks are one of like the major killers in the United States. It might even be the first.
What are heart attacks?
Don't worry, guys. I know you guys are excited, but I will talk about this in the next slide. There's one last thing I want to talk about on this slide. And that is the fact that, and that is the difference between veins and arteries. The only difference between veins and arteries is that veins bring blood into the heart and arteries bring blood out of the heart. And that's literally that's literally the only difference. Arteries take blood out, veins bring blood in. So the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, these are all veins because they're bringing blood into the heart. excuse me. And these are arteries because the pulmonary artery, they're bringing blood out of the heart. Technically, the aorta is also an artery. It's a very big one. It brings blood out of the heart, so it's an artery. Okay. If there are no questions, I'm gonna move on to the next slide. There are no questions, right? Anthony, I think you just joined, right? Okay. Yeah, Anthony just joined. We're talking about the heart, Anthony. This recording, I'm recording it, so you'll be able to see it online. I will I'll upload the recording within 30 minutes of class ending. So I'll be able to, those are cool stickers, Colby. So you'll be able to see it online. And if you have any questions, feel free to jump in, Anthony. Yes, heart stuff. Colby is correct. If you guys are still spamming the chat, please cease doing that. You guys are like 10 years old. I expect that of like 6-year-olds, not 10-year-olds. Come on. Okay, perfect. Let's talk about what you guys have all been waiting for. Heart attacks, and other heart diseases. Okay, so everyone knows that another word for heart attack is cardiac arrest, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, some people know, and I saw some shaking heads. So another word for heart attack is cardiac arrest. It is basically where the heart doesn't get enough oxygen, it doesn't get enough blood, or it simply stops beating. And we'll talk about why. Actually, I'll talk about why right now. What can happen is if you do not live a healthy lifestyle, let's say you eat a lot of unhealthy foods such as saturated fat, or you have a lot of bad cholesterol in your system, it can build up in your veins and in your arteries. So here, let me pull up a picture here. If I can stop my screen share and share my Google screen here. Let's see. Let's go to Google Images. And what it's called is it's called plaque buildup in arteries. Let's get a picture here. Okay, perfect. So this is great reliable image from Johns Hopkins Medicine. And so what we'll be able to see here is that usually arteries are not blocked, right? The blood flows, these blood cells can pass through normally, right? This is what we like to see on the left here. This is a healthy artery and a healthy human, really. What can happen is that if you eat a lot of saturated fat, if you eat something like butter a lot, if you eat a lot of unhealthy foods that contain a lot of oil, you'll get this kind of plaque buildup in your arteries. And this is basically just fat, cholesterol. And what can happen is that it squeezes the walls of the artery and it makes the opening really small. And we can see that the blood really struggles to get through. This is bad. Not a lot of blood cells get to the body. This is actually really dangerous. And so one of the things we can do is we can take what is called a stent. And this is like a common procedure now, but basically we take the stent and we place it where these plaque buildups have occurred, and we can inflate the stent so that it opens the artery.
Wait, but the thing inside, won't it be stuck there for a long time until like it turns into that? Like the
Wait, sorry, can you
How
answer?
do they get it in there?
Okay, I will answer that question in a sec, Daniel, but Colby, can you ask your question again?
But while it's expanding, won't it still be stuck there for a long time? And it won't let the flow through?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. What the stent does is we actually leave the stent in the body. The stent is hollow on the inside. It's like a tube.
Oh.
Think you know what a paper towel roll looks like, right? Yes, basically it's like a cylinder that is hollow on the inside, and it allows blood to flow through, and it prevents more buildup of plaque.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. That's
What they
cool.
do, Daniel, is there are a lot of ways to get a stent into your body. One of the ways that we can do that is we make a small incision on your upper thigh, and we run this catheter up the vein in your upper thigh and up to the heart.
No,
So-
stop talking. Stop talking. This
Okay,
is grossing
okay.
me out.
Sorry.
It's not gross, it's creepy, kind of. Because, like, think about it. You're just shoving a robotic thing in your veins. Isn't that, like, weird?
it can be a little intimidating to think about, but think about it. These patients will undergo heart attacks. They will die if we don't do this procedure for them.
It's
So the
not
fact-
that bad. I mean, you won't feel it or anything.
Right,
I
exactly.
mean, like, at least it saves lives, but it's gross.
Yes, that is one thing that surgeons have to get over, the kind of slight gross factor, but as Lena said, it saves lives. This has saved I don't know how many lives, but I would say millions. And so stent implantation procedures are a great measure against plaque buildup. Colby said, "What is this? I'm not eating anything with oil again." Yes. Yes, oil excessive. Okay, I should say that excessive amounts of oil is bad. If you have a little bit of oil now and then, you're fine. As long as you guys are eating vegetables, fruits, exercising, doing cardiovascular workouts, working your heart, sweating, really working out your body, and getting your heart to pump, you guys are good. Yes, Lena, what's up?
I have a question about this. So, you know how, what was my question again? You know how you're eating about fats, right? Technically, you're supposed to eat fats
Yes,
in
you
your
are.
body
Mhm.
because it's so, like, won't the oil technically be a type of fat that your body needs in order to, like, store?
Yes, so Lena's right. And like I mentioned earlier with Colby, you can't completely eliminate fats from your diet. That is not a good idea. The human body needs to have some fat. Fat is basically a long-term energy storage system that your body has. And so not eating any oil, that's also dangerous. What I'm talking about is a certain type of oil. It's called saturated fat. It is very high in butter. And saturated fat has this kind of molecular structure that basically allows it to be very solid, be very rigid, even in high temperatures. And so if you guys ever see a stick of butter and you leave it out in room temperature, it's not going to melt that much. It's still going to be solid. It's going to be soft, but it's not going to be liquid. And so that's just like one example of something you shouldn't eat that much of. And so Lena is right. If you have something like extra virgin olive oil that doesn't have a lot of saturated fat, it has unsaturated fat, then that's fine because you need a certain amount of fat in your diet. What you want out of this fat is unsaturated fat. You want unsaturated fat because it is not as dangerous for you. It doesn't really build up in your arteries, and it doesn't make that kind of like plaque that we were talking about that leads to heart attacks. What is dangerous is saturated fat. Okay, any questions, anybody? Okay, perfect. We have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to quickly go through this last slide before we can go do a little gimkit. Okay, let's talk about arrhythmia. So arrhythmia is the other kind of like big heart issue that can happen. So what happens with arrhythmia is that I mentioned earlier how the heart is electrically controlled. Basically, the electrical controlling of the heart, it goes awry. Like like there's a problem with it. And so basically the pacemaker, it goes berserk, it sends way too many electrical signals to the heart, and the heart, instead of contracting normally, like bump, 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 it basically goes it's pretty bad. So basically what the lower chambers do is they contract really quickly and without coordination. And so what we can do is we can use these processes called CPR and AED. So CPR stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and AED stands for automated external defibrillator. Basically what CPR is doing is we are taking our hands like this. Let me stand up. We kneel next to the patient and we apply chest compressions really, really quickly and with a lot of strength. Usually when we do CPR, we actually break the patient's ribs, which is fine. Doctors can fix broken ribs, but they can't fix dead. Yes, it is actually very, okay, it's not good to break the ribs, but it is good to break the ribs in the sense that you are saving the patient.
At least they're alive.
Exactly, right? Ribs will, given 6 months, ribs will heal. You know what won't heal? If you're dead, okay? So chest compressions, you're basically compressing the heart and pumping blood for the patient. Oh man, we have less than a minute. What an AED does is it delivers an electric shock to the patient. It resets the pacemaker. Basically, the AED, you strap it on, it will measure the patient's electrical impulses. And it will say shock advised if a shock is advised. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to say clear in a really loud voice, and you shock the patient. And what that will do is it will reset the pacemaker so that the heart stops going like, it will go back to like bump, 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 or at least that is the hope. And so the combination of AED and CPR is really, really important. Okay, any
Wait.
questions, anybody?